Hey everyone. Today I'm going to take a look at a story I found buried in the inside of yesterday's Philadelphia Inquirer. The interesting thing is that we're going to see that this story leads us to talking about Pentagon failed audits, Chinese Belt and Road, and along the way I'll tell you a personal story about my previous employment. Some of it might even be funny. We'll try. Let's jump in. All right, here we go. Shapiro's going to curb data center development. Don't really care about that guy. Heated debates over in the first district. Who gives a shit? Minnesota suing Texas for extradition of an ICE agent. Let's pray that actually happens, because those murderous motherfuckers ought to go to jail and we ought to bury them underneath the fucking thing. But here's the story I really wanted to talk about. On page A6, if you scroll down here, right next to New York developer proposing 129 affordable apartments near Temple, we got this little story about the Pentagon ordering audits of 30 universities with ties with foreign partners. Let's take a look at the story itself. The Department of Defense has ordered 30 U.S. universities to audit their partnerships with mostly Chinese universities and military training institutions as the Trump administration scrutinizes the country's growing global influence. If the schools don't complete a review and terminate any arrangements deemed problematic within the next 2 weeks, they face losing funding. The goal is to protect taxpayer-funded research from theft and exploitation, the Pentagon said Monday. Imagine that, the Pentagon worried about theft and exploitation. We'll come back to that. Quote, the Department of War has zero tolerance for academic partnerships that compromise our national security, Emil Michael, the Pentagon's chief technology officer, said in a news release. The release didn't name the schools, but a U.S. official who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss internal matters said they include Harvard University, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Johns Hopkins University. The schools didn't immediately respond to emails from the Associated Press seeking comment. Sarah Spritzer, vice president of the American Council on Education, which represents college and university presidents, raised concerns that the announcement suggests, without any evidence, that the schools are engaged in wrongdoing. The order comes after the Pentagon last month released an updated list of 130 foreign institutions it accused of engaging in activities that increase the likelihood of U.S. government-funded research and development efforts being misappropriated. Aren't these the same assholes who have declared that Antifa is the world's largest terrorist organization and that democratic socialists are now going to end up on hit lists? Fucking insane. The first version of the list was developed during Trump's first term with the help of the American Council on Education, Spritzer said. She said most of the council's member institutions moved away from research partnerships with those institutions in the years that followed. She said she worries U.S. schools will be held liable for partnerships that predate the creation of the list. Quote, we don't appreciate the implication that we are not good partners on research security, given that we helped create this list and given that we've always partnered with the federal government when there has been national security concerns, she said. Partnering with the federal government. That's a mistake. The audit comes as the Trump administration continues to express deep concern about China's activities in the Americas, pushing back on Chinese ownership of ports at either end of the Panama Canal, infrastructure projects funded by China's Belt and Road Initiative in the region, and Chinese investment in the telecommunications sector. The Justice Department is also investigating whether Harvard University is allowing Chinese donors to create scholarships that exclude American students, adding to the barrage of federal inquiries the Trump administration has opened in its battle against the Ivy League school. Where the fuck does the Pentagon get off demanding that schools pass one of their fucking audits in 2 weeks or lose their funding? The Pentagon, as I'm about to show you, hasn't passed a fucking audit in its life. And that's a problem. Let's take a look. Look, a lot of people have talked about the Pentagon and how inept it is. I'm not going to go through every one of their findings, but I did find this website called warcosts.org. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend that you do. But let's just take a look here for the Pentagon audit failures. And the highlights: 8 consecutive failed audits, 63% of assets unaccounted for. That amounts to 2.5 trillion taxpayer dollars. Remember that guy back in college? He fronted a couple $100 so that he could buy books, but then he came home that night and didn't have any books, but he had a shitload of pot? Yeah, it's kind of like that, right? You give money for one thing and it's just spent on something else. Except in this case, we don't even know what the fuck else they spent it on. They just lost it. And I'll tell you where I think most of it went. So the 8-year failure streak. In 2018, the Pentagon conducted its first ever audit. It failed spectacularly. That's the only thing it's done spectacularly. It's lost the war in Iran. It lost the war in Afghanistan. It lost the war in Iraq. It lost the war in Vietnam. It lost the war in Korea. The last time this military, that's the most vaunted in the world, supposedly, according to Donald pedophile Trump, hasn't won a war in nearly 70 fucking years. But that's a whole other thing. Then it failed again and again and again. 8 consecutive years of failure, each with the same excuse: we're making progress. Imagine me saying that to my boss, right? You haven't met your goals for the year, Rob. I'm making progress. Year 2. Rob, you haven't met your goals again. I'm making progress. How long do you think that's going to fucking last? I'd be fired after the first year. You can bet your bottom dollar on it. In 2018, first ever Pentagon audit failed spectacularly, could not account for 61% of $2.7 trillion in assets. That's over $1 trillion. You know what you could do with $1 trillion? Probably give every one of us fucking health care. That's what they could do with that money. And the Pentagon, we failed the audit, but we never expected to pass it. Fucking losers. 2019, second consecutive failure. Quote, the DOD has never had a clean audit opinion. In 2020, third failure during COVID. While Americans struggled, Pentagon couldn't track $3 trillion. Audit readiness is a journey, not a destination. Fucking, I mean, what is that? Fourth consecutive failure in 2021. Assets grew, accountability didn't. But the Pentagon said, we're making steady progress on financial management. In 2022, fifth failure. The audit process is helping us identify areas for improvement. That's not what an audit is for, you fucking morons. 2023, failed again. We are committed to achieving a clean audit opinion. 24, financial management reform remains a top priority. Just like it was, how many years before? Oh yeah, 3 years before. So in 3 years, this top priority didn't get improved on at all. In 2025, failed again. Momentum is on our side. We are making meaningful progress. Here's what that money could have bought instead. Free college for every American for 10 years. End homelessness permanently. Would only cost $30 billion. Repair every bridge in America rated structurally deficient. That would be nice, not to have to hold my breath every time I cross the Tacony. Provide clean drinking water infrastructure for entire developing world. And I hope they mean Flint, Michigan is in that as well. Fund NASA at current levels for 312 years. They'd have to get rid of Musk first. Give every American family $19,000 in cash. What would you do with $19,000 in cash? Shit, I might be able to buy season tickets to the Sixers with that kind of money. Build 12.5 million affordable housing units. Eliminate all student loan debt in America, with $2.8 trillion left over. The Pentagon's unaccounted $2.5 trillion could give every American family $19,230 in cash, or provide free college for every American for a decade, or end homelessness 83 times over. Instead, it's just gone with no explanation, no accountability, no consequences. And now for my personal story. So, a long time ago, I think my oldest was not even 2 years old at the time. I'd gotten laid off from a job, right? Everybody goes through it, you get laid off. But I did pick up a job with a military contractor, and it was a contract position. The pay was nice. I was scared out of my mind. I took the job, right? Had a kid to provide for, had a wife to provide for, all that good stuff. I took the job. All right. So I was a military contractor. Where did I work? I worked at NAVSUP in Northeast Philadelphia. For those of you that are not from around here, NAVSUP is the Naval Supply Depot. And what they run out of that depot are the foreign military sales for the United States government. And I was brought in because they had a bunch of people that were retiring in the next 5 to 10 years at that time, right? They were scared that all the boomers that had been there forever they were approaching a retirement age, and they were just going to leave. And then the systems weren't in place. They didn't know what each person did. Nobody had documented what each group did within that area of the military. Okay. So who did I work with for 2 years? One fucking guy. One fucking guy had set up a SQL database on his laptop and was tracking all foreign military sales that ran through that base on his fucking laptop. That's what I had to document. And we wonder why the Pentagon can't pass a fucking audit? What the fuck? And finally, one of the other things they made reference to in that story from the Inquirer was China being a not good actor, right? And so what they were talking about was their Belt and Road Initiative. I looked it up, and the good folks over at the Center for Strategic and International Studies has been looking at the Belt and Road Initiative that China's been pursuing over the last several years. And here's what they have to say. The Belt and Road Initiative is Chinese President Xi Jinping's signature foreign policy project aimed at strengthening China's connectivity with the world. It combines new and old projects, covers an expansive geographic scope, and includes efforts to strengthen hard infrastructure, soft infrastructure, and people-to-people ties. As of October 2023, the plan touches 151 countries with a combined gross domestic product of 41 trillion and some 5.1 billion people. So let's think about that. 151 countries in the world have signed on to participate in this initiative. Is China really the bad guy here? They're reaching out to 151 countries and building shit. What does our president do? Takes those same 151 countries and imposes 50%, 60%, 80% tariffs on all of them, blanket. Remember when he tariffed the fucking island of penguins? That's what our president does. And so you have to wonder, right? America is the bad guy now. We have been the bad guy for a long time. And the Pentagon demanding that universities stop working with the Chinese? What is that about? It's not about whether or not security is being compromised. Fuck. Trump and them signed contracts with Palantir. Your and I's profiles are in some database somewhere, and they're tracking every movement that we make. This isn't about security, it's about power. And what the American empire is finding out is that China has been playing nice with 151 other countries who have agreed to work with them to build a project that will connect the world. Oh, it's so frustrating. What could have been? Here, the Belt and Road Initiative. This map gives you a good idea. 151 partner countries. Look at that map. It's the entire continent of Africa. It's most of the Middle East. right? It's Russia, it's China, it goes into the South Seas. It's extending all the way over into Portugal. Look at this. Portugal is involved. Most of Western Europe is involved. Are all these countries so naive that they are willing to forfeit their people's power and their people's abilities to China? Because that's what the Pentagon wants us to believe, that working with China is going to lead to us losing our freedom. Look at this map again. That's a lot of fucking people. And they're not worried about losing their freedoms. They're looking at China as an opportunity, and an opportunity to improve their daily lives. 151 partner countries, 5.1 billion people in the world are caught up in this. 4.1 trillion is the combined GDP of all countries involved in this project. 2.8 trillion is the amount of trade that China has been able to muster between China and BRI countries since 2021. 2.8 trillion in trade. Isn't that what Trump wants? But he thinks you do it by beating them. I, I, I don't get it, right? China, say what you will about China, but they're not going around the world beating people and slapping people the way we are. I mean, the United States under Trump, under Biden, under Obama, under all these fuckers has become the abusive husband to the world. And we have to ask why we let that happen and how do we change it. So that's it. That's this week's story. Hopefully I'll be back this weekend. I'll post something else, but I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you.